Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I am Alison. I write as Alison May, Juliet Bell, and most recently as Alison Sinclair, and today the author copies of my new book arrived. It's out on the 10th of August. It's so pretty and so pink. It's a sort of raspberry shade. Are raspberries the most festive of the soft fruit? I don't know, but that's what we've gone for. Anyway, it's gorgeous. I'm very much enjoying stroking it. And yeah, out on the 10th of August, you can pre-order now. The Christmas season, Alison Sinclair. Do check it out if you enjoy a rom-com or a Christmas book. Here on YouTube, though, I talk about all things writing and publishing related. And today the topic is stupid writing rules, or at least writing rules that have been sent to me when I asked my writing friends, what do you think are stupid writing rules? They're going to be sent to me and I'm going to rate them. I'm going to go through them and I'm going to tell you whether I agree that these rules are stupid or whether I think there is something to them. So let's get straight to it. Starting off with one that slightly different forms. I was basically sent this twice. Adverbs are a terrible thing. This is a really strong received wisdom in writing circles, that you should get rid of all the adverbs. No, I mean, adverbs are fine. They're a part of language, they're a part of speech, they're a part of prose, they're a perfectly legitimate sort of word. Adverb is a word that describes the verb. So he was running quickly, he was running slowly. They're quite often those ly words. A lot of the time, the reason that this advice that adverbs are terrible has come about is that a lot of the time you don't need it. If you're describing someone running towards someone and they're out of breath when they get there, it's sort of implied that they were running quickly. You probably don't need to put that in as well. But there are times when you do need it, and there are times when it adds clarity. There are times when it adds something to the rhythm of the sentence. So yeah, like any word in something you're writing, if you've got an adverb there, consider whether you need it. But to make a hard and fast rule that says no adverbs, a verb is always stronger without an adverb, no. Sometimes they're appropriate. Stupid writing rule. No, not a stupid writing rule. Ooh, I should have done a tier list for this, shouldn't I? Yeah, maybe next time. If I was doing a tier list, this would go sort of somewhere in the middle, because it's like, yeah, look at your adverbs, decide if you need them, but don't have a hard and fast blanket rule that you're never going to use one. Number 2. Okay, you should never change point of view in the middle of a scene or in the middle of a chapter. Okay, this to me is just slightly mind-blowing. I always write, pretty much always write in multiple points of view. I think my Alison Sinclair books, the season books, have got 5 points of view in them. The first book I co-wrote is Juliet Bell, I think has 13 point of view characters in. So point of view characters are those characters where we get to see their inner thoughts. Still not 100% over the COVIDs. I'm basically fine until I try to talk and then I get a really tickly throat, which isn't great for this. But as I was saying, yeah, I nearly always write in multiple point of view, and you change the point of view you're writing in when it is appropriate to do so, when the story is going to be more interesting or more dramatic when told from another character's point of view, or when you need the reader to see what another character is thinking about a situation. So I quite often change point of view in the middle of a scene. Sometimes the reason that you do that is because the stakes in the scene have changed. So if you imagine a scene where someone is proposing marriage, at the start of that scene, before the question has been asked, the person who has most at stake is likely to be the person asking the question. They're putting themselves out there emotionally. They don't know what the response from the other person is going to be until they've asked the question. As soon as they've asked the question, in a sense, the pressure is off them and it's the person who has to give an answer now. So that might be a moment where you wanted to jump point of view, either from the person asking to the person answering, or if you wanted to keep the reader slightly in the dark and if you wanted them kind of seeing the reactions but not actually seeing the inner working. You might do it the other way around. Either of those could work, and they'd have a slightly different impact on the reader, but that would be a really interesting moment to switch point of view in the middle of a scene. So yeah, you absolutely can change point of view in the middle of a scene. Where this rule comes from is that people generally advise that you should be wary of head hopping. Head hopping is where you drift between points of view, possibly in an unintentional or kind of not thought through way. You're not doing it consciously, it's just sort of the writing drifting away from you. Try not to do that, although having said that, it's very much a question of fashion. If you look back to kind of classic, traditional, great literature, point of view tends to meander all over the place. The narrator is usually omniscient and they dip into any and all characters' points of view. We tend to have slightly more clearly delineated points of view these days. But that's not to say you have to. Richard Osman, the first Thursday Murder Club novel, The Thursday Murder Club, that head hops, that drifts between points of view in some of the narrative sections quite a lot. And it's fine, it works. It's not a big deal if you make it work. As long as your reader isn't confused about what's going on, you absolutely can move between points of view quite gently, or you can put in just a double line break and continue the scene in a new point of view if you're going for more of a definite shift. That tends to be what I do because I consciously write in multiple points of view. But omniscient narrators still exist. They still get written who move more gently between points of view. So this one, I think, although I understand where it comes from, that wariness about head hopping and not wanting to confuse the reader, this is a stupid rule. I'm putting this one in the dustbin. If it was a tier list, this would be down at the bottom in the nasty bright red bit. Okay, so, we've got a little run now of things that start never. And I think any writing advice that starts never, unless it's never post your dirty knickers to an agent along with your submission, that's a hard and fast never. But if it's to do with the actual writing, I think anything that starts never is going to be questionable. So we'll whip through these quite quickly. We've got never introduce a character with pronouns. Never start a sentence with but, and never start your novel with dialogue. I'm binning all three of these straight away for different reasons. So never introduce a character with pronouns, always use the name or the man or the woman. I had never heard this one before until one of my writing friends sent it to me as something that they'd been told was a no-no. And I'm genuinely kind of mind blown that this advice is out there. Yeah, no, this just seems weird. If you are just introducing someone as he, so, you know, page 1 of the novel, you have he walked down the street, we're going to need to know who that he is fairly quickly. But even then, you don't necessarily need a name. There are lots of characters in literature who are never explicitly named. Think about Rebecca. If you want to come bang up today into TV, think about Fleabag. We never actually find out that character's name, and she's the main character in the whole series. But we find out who she is as a person. So if you're just introducing someone as he, we need to kind of colour in who he is fairly quickly. But introducing him as him or introducing him as the man doesn't seem to make a huge amount of difference. That doesn't tell us a great deal more about him either way. So yeah, no, this one I'm just like, what? I've never heard that, and I'm kind of glad I'd never heard it because it seems weird. Never start a sentence with but. So this is one of those grammatical rules that I'm sure most of us were taught in school. Never start a sentence with a conjunction. So but, and, because. Yeah, you absolutely can. I quite frequently do. Sometimes in fiction, you're looking for the kind of rhythm of the language as much as the words itself. And la 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 la, but la 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 gives a slightly different rhythm to la 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 la, full stop, but la 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 la. It's just a difference of emphasis and a difference of rhythm, and sometimes you need that. So you might even put that but or that and at the beginning of a new paragraph if you really want to say da 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 da, this is what's happening, but actually this is what's happening. You might put in a new paragraph and give that even further separation. Yeah, you can absolutely start a new sentence in a novel with a conjunction. Yeah, it's fine. Never start with dialogue. So this is an interesting one because I think this is a piece of advice that's come about recently, and I think this is a reaction against the prevailing wisdom for a long time, which has been you have to get straight into the story. Now, I absolutely agree that wherever possible you should get straight into the story, but what we mean by the story is obviously really broad. There are multiple starting points for many stories, so you've got to get straight into the story has become a sort of piece of advice where it's like you have to start with action, you have to start in the middle of a scene, you have to start in the middle of something. And more recently, I think editors and possibly readers and some writers have started to go, yeah, but if you start right in the middle of action, it doesn't give us a lot of time to get to know the characters. If you start in the middle with dialogue, we don't know who's speaking, we don't understand the world we're in. And that is a useful thing to bear in mind. If you're starting with dialogue, is it clear from your dialogue who is having this conversation, what the context is? Is the reader going to understand fairly quickly where they are and what's going on? But realistically, that's a question to ask yourself however you start your story. At the beginning of a novel, your reader isn't going to know very much about the characters and about the world and about the story. That's just the nature of the beginning of something. So however you start it, you're going to need to make sure you're colouring in those details fairly quickly. And dialogue can do that perfectly well, because the way someone speaks, the way someone expresses themselves, and the content of what they are saying and to whom tells us a huge amount about the character and where they are in a story. So yes, you absolutely can start a novel with dialogue. I'm trying to remember whether I've done it or not. I'm sure I have at some point. I'm going to just have a quick look. Nope, that starts with prose. I think I don't usually start with dialogue, but I imagine I have at some point. Oh yeah, I have, straight away. Didn't take very long to find that at all. All That Was Lost, which is one of my favourites of my books. It's very lovely. I've lost my place, Patrice scowled at her manager. So the very first line is a character, Patrice, saying to somebody, I've lost my place. That's the opening of the book. That's line 1. So yeah, I have started with dialogue. It's absolutely fine. You then, so long as you get straight into the story from there, straight into the world, straight into the characters, you can start however you like. Okay, we're going to do one more. I've been sent loads, so I might do another video like this because it's quite fun. I'm going to do one more. You can't set a story in Scotland. Could you move it to Wales? So this is an interesting one because I think this is probably a piece of advice that's been given by an editor to a writer. I could be wrong about that. I don't know the context. But there are definitely fashions in what locations are popular, and there are definitely some locations, and Scotland is definitely one of them, Cornwall, Ireland are others. There are definitely locations that seem to be particularly popular with readers, that are seen as being particularly romantic or particularly evocative in some way. Now, some of that comes from the fact that publishing, particularly commercial publishing, can be quite risk averse. It can be quite of the mindset of, oh, we've published books in this location that have done well before, let's publish more like that. So this may well be a situation where there have been lots of books published set in Scotland that have been popular, possibly not quite so many set in Wales that have been popular, so a publisher is just viewing that as higher risk. It doesn't mean that a book set in Wales couldn't do well, and there definitely are books set in Wales that have done well, but it's not a, oh yes, we've published lots of things like this before and they did well, so this feels safe. Now, that's a decision then for you as an author in how much you want to follow those trends and how much you want to march to the beat of your own drum and then kind of roll with the consequences. Sometimes publishers do ask you to move the location of a book, and sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. It's going to depend how central the location is to the story. You know, if you've just written Sex and the City and the editor says, this is great, can we move it to a village in Devon? You're going to go, not without substantially changing the story. If, however, what you've written is set in a village in Dorset and the publisher says, can we move this to a village in Devon? Possibly you can. A lot of the social systems, the social niceties, the way the characters interact, things are going to be fairly similar. You're going to have to do some work to change place names and make sure that your village hangs together in the new place and all of that, but it might be more doable. So don't automatically say no if an editor asks if you can move a location. Sometimes you can, sometimes you really, really can't. And it's a decision to be made. If you're writing commercially, when you look at the market, are you going to write in one of those locations and settings that is repeatedly and universally popular, or are you going to march to the beat of your own drum? I personally would love to see certainly more contemporary set in Wales. I've seen a fair bit of historical set in Wales and a fair bit of fantasy that is sort of Welsh mythology and Welsh culture inspired. Some of the Arthurian books that are out there have a very strong Welsh flavour, which is fabulous. I would love to see some more contemporary set in Wales, particularly kind of rom-com. Yeah, anyone knows any rom-com set in Wales, let me know in the comments, because I would be totally up for reading that. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on just some writing rules. Largely stupid, but sometimes with a bit of a hook on, this is where this has come from. Take that on board or don't, depending how you feel. Next week, I will be here talking about something writing and publishing related. I don't really know what. The week after that, we'll have a vlog from the Harrogate Festival of Crime, and I'll be talking about festivals and how that all works. So do hang around for that. If you like this sort of content, please subscribe to the channel. Please comment on the videos. It makes so much more difference to YouTube visibility and to YouTube creators if you subscribe and comment and interact with videos. So please do that, and I will see you next time.